Hello, everyone. It's been a while since I've been on YouTube, but I wanted to come on and make a quick video because I'm going to try to start doing more videos about our homeschooling experience here. My name is Muffy Mendoza. I blog at brownmamas.com where I focus on making moms better moms so that dads can be better dads, children become better adults, and ultimately communities become better communities. And it's also a huge part of why I homeschool. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay. Go play games.
I like hot chocolate.
We know you like hot chocolate. And what's the other thing that you love more than anything else? Video games. So that's why I wanted to make a quick video, about video games and homeschooling because my sons are avid gamers. They love to play video games. And so I started thinking about ways that I can teach them using the video game, and I'm going to be engaging in that over the next school year and just finding more ways that I can teach them using video games because it's what they love. They're learning things and it's not forced. And I find that whenever I incorporate something about video games into our curriculum, they just get really excited and they're really eager to do the assignment. So I figured, why not take it a step further? And so I went to the library and I found this book. It's called Don't Bother Me, Mom, I'm Learning. And it's by Mark Prinsky. And actually, there's another author in this book who I'm interested in reading more of. But basically, this book talks about how kids are learning from video games. But it also, more importantly, go ahead. No, I'm doing it. No, you may not. More importantly, it talks about how children's minds are being changed. The way they learn is being changed by video games, and why the traditional model of schooling is no longer working with children who've grown up in a digital age, who, if they're anything like my two younger sons, my middle son, he started playing video games when he was like 4, and my youngest has been playing them pretty much since he was born. And my oldest son loves video games as well, even though he didn't start to play video games until he was much older. Probably around maybe 9, I would say he started playing video games. So this is an excellent book, and I'm just going to talk about a little bit of the stuff that I've learned so far. And as I go along making these homeschooling videos through YouTube, I'm going to expound more on it. But so far what I've learned is about how children's minds are changing. And basically in the book, the author he creates two divides between basically educators and children, and what they are is digital immigrants and digital natives. Now, I myself, as a millennial, grew up with the internet, but I can be honest enough to say that as a millennial, if you are on the older side of the millennials, then you know that even though I was raised around technology, I didn't really get engaged in technology until I went to college, really, because that was when Facebook and things came out and people really started to search the internet for more fluid information. And so in this book, he makes a point that basically we have digital immigrants trying to teach digital natives, and it's not working because the old style of teaching no longer works with the modality of how the children's brains are working. And so basically he makes the point that through video games, hold on a second, boys, you need to sit down. Have a seat. I have kids. I'm a real mom. I'm not going to edit this video, so just know that I might have to stop and tell them to be quiet. But he basically talks about how children now, because they are so video game inclined, because they enjoy playing video games, they learn differently. They learn differently in that versus when we were in school, when many of us were in school, we learned via information being given to us and then digesting that information and then figuring out how to use it. Well, they're starting to learn, our children are learning from the exact opposite of that. They're learning through experimentation, through trial and error, through basically strategy. That's how they're learning. So they go into a video game, they learn the rules of the video game, and then they have to test their knowledge of the video game by moving forward in the game. And it's also heavily reward based. So when they're playing the video game, like when my kids are playing one of their favorite games Soul Calibur. The more battles that they win, they get more points so that they can customize their characters. And so these games are very much so reward based, whereas traditional schooling is not so much like that. I mean, some teachers have implemented point structures and things like that, but it still doesn't have the immediate reward that many kids are getting in the video games and that they really enjoy. And the author also makes a point of saying how much more children are able to grasp when they're able to enjoy what they're learning. And I see this with my kids firsthand, which is when they're able to learn something through the video game, they grasp it so much easier because it's not forced learning. I mean, just think about anything you've been forced to learn as a parent, as an adult, and how difficult it is for you to digest it. Whereas, like myself personally, I love to read. Reading is my preferred mechanism for learning. But when I have to go into a lecture environment, and sometimes I'm even challenged with hands-on because reading is just the way I love to learn. And so we have to begin to think about that when we think about our children and when we think about how we're teaching them, especially if you've allowed your kids to engage in playing video games. The way you may be thinking about teaching them may be not on par with what they're learning. And then also you have to think about when they're playing these video games, it is very rapid. They're multitasking. They're learning how to not only learn from trial and error, but also learn from strategy simultaneously. So if you're sitting your kids down with a worksheet and feeding them information, that's not how they learn. You may have to develop more techniques where you do hands-on learning, where you are challenging them to be better problem solvers versus just giving them a worksheet and saying, sit down, let's do this. Because that's not how they get excited about learning. But more importantly, that's not how they learn. It's not how they learn. And so, like I said, this book is called Don't Bother Me, Mom, I'm Learning by Mark Prinsky. I found it at the library. There's also an author in here named James Paul McGee. And Gee. I want to say his name is James Paul Gee, not McGee. Let me go back to the page I left off. And it had his name. Yes. He's a professor of education, James Paul Gee. And James Paul Gee talks about his son and how he actually introduced his son to games on the computer so that he could, get ahead of the curve as far as allowing that introduction to be a parental one. And basically how he was able to develop higher literacy skills, reading skills, problem solving, and mathematics skills with his sons through the use of Pokemon, because this book was written in 2006, so it's outdated, but it still has a great grasp on how children are utilizing video games to basically create their own version of 21st century learning. And so, I just think that this is something that really needs to be explored, especially if you have male children. I have all male children, and so I cannot engage them the same way a woman would engage the same way a parent would engage a female child, because they're just not interested in the same things. And so and there's big conversations going on right now about women in coding and women in gaming, and how women have actually been left behind by not being allowed to engage in more technology driven learning. So I just think that's something that we really need to explore. And like I said before, think about how it's really important. One thing I've had to just accept hands down is that I have to start playing video games with my kids, because that's how you get into their world about what they're learning. And then you can take that information and turn it into lessons for them. I mean, so as much as me being the girly girl that I am, like I said, my preferred method of learning is reading. Those video games give me a headache. But it's just the reality. I mean, it's just the reality of, if I want my children to learn, and not only learn, but be happy about learning, be excited about learning, I'm going to have to engage them on a level where their excitement lies. So that's what I've got today. My name is Muffy Mendoza. I blog at brownmamas.com, where I focus on making moms better moms so that dads can be better dads, children become better adults, and ultimately communities become better communities. I hope you guys have a great, awesome, beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.